First gear. Oh. Alright guys, welcome back. And last time we got this thing up and running, which means we got to get it driving. And there's a lot of little stuff we got to do, like brakes and drive shaft and all that fun stuff. But I have help, and they're going to do the front brakes for me. And while they're doing the front brakes, I'm going to tear the rear apart because I got a locker to put in and a disc brake conversion to do. So they're going to do pads and rotors on the front. I'm going to tear the rear axle apart. And once I get that tore apart, they can put disc brakes on the rear too. So let's get started. Well, they've been knocking the hubs off this thing to do front brakes. I tore the drums off the back and I pulled the carrier out because this thing had an open carrier. And there's just no way I'm going to have an open carrier. This thing needs to pull both rear tires, especially if I want to do some burnouts every now and then. It's not the 51, but still, it's gotta have a locker. So I threw in a Spartan lunchbox locker because this thing just had an open diff, no limited slip or anything. So I threw that in there. Kind of a pain, I'll be honest. Everything wants to like spring apart. But it's in there, it's not, should work good. So I'm gonna go reinstall this while they keep working on the front brakes. So they got the whole front tore down, and I got all the new stuff in. So new rotors, new pads, new lines going up through, everything's plumbed in. I put the shocks in, so these are Bilstein 4600s, kind of a stock replacement type setup. I debated some remote reservoirs, but I thought, you know what, this thing's a driver, let's try these out first. So everything up here is buttoned up. I just got to finish the rear brakes and I can bleed it because obviously I haven't bled these yet. And then in the front, got the steering damper in and everything. So I had to make a bracket on the axle side. So that bolts in nicely. Everything looks good. And this side's all buttoned up too. So now it's time to go to the back. And I've got back here, I already tore the drums off and everything when I put the locker in. So I've got the rotors on here. So now I just got to get the brackets on, figure out where they're going to go with the calipers, weld them on. And then we've got some suspension stuff to put back here to set the pinion angle. And we got to put shocks on the rear too. That's going to take a little bit more. Rear brakes are done minus the lines. So this is kind of your standard rear disc brake conversion for an 8-lug. These are early 1980s GM 3/4 ton front calipers. And then these are some aftermarket brackets I picked up online that just weld right on. And then these are actually Dodge rear discs to set the caliper inboard a little bit more. So these are all good. And then here, I've got my shim in to get the pinion angle right. And I've got my lift block to get my ride height right. These bolts are a little bit short. Gonna need to replace them. So now I've got to get the shock in. So I've got the bottom mounted in the factory Dodge spot. It actually seems like it's going to work pretty well here. I just need to make a mount for the upper side. So I've cut some steel out, weld it in, and we'll see how it works. And then we'll go make the rear one for the other side. Got the shock all mounted up in there. Basically drilled a hole and ran a bolt through. And then under here, just peek the bolt through, welded it on the far side, welded the tab up there, and that should be plenty strong enough. It's kind of how the stock mounts were in this truck to start with. But it looks like it'll work pretty well. So now I just gotta mimic it all over to the backside and the shocks will all be done. Alright, there's been a pretty big jump between the last clip I shot and this one, and that's because I've just been using like every little bit of spare time I have to try to get this thing done, and I haven't really filmed anything, but the suspension's done, the brakes are done, they're bled. I got pretty much everything buttoned up. The front clip's back on. I got it. It's actually sitting on its own weight. So pretty much all I've got to do to drive it is put the hood on, make a rear drive shaft, and there's something else. Oh, make sure the clutch works, because I'm not sure that's totally bled. But, I mean, it looks sweet. Like, that's sitting at ride height. It's got all the weight down on it. Front end's all back on, so I'm really happy. I mean, I didn't film much, but whatever. I mean, it looks good. I'm super happy with it. So now I'm gonna grab an old drive shaft I have laying around. I'm gonna put that up in, we'll measure it, and then I have a new tube, so we'll cut the ends off it, weld the new tube in, and we'll have a rear drive shaft. And this thing is gonna be super, super close to driving. And I'm excited. I can't wait. This thing is gonna be sweet. Oh, another thing I did was I got the radiator hoses on. So here's the upper, the lower. You can't even see. It's down there, but it's one of the metal flexible ones. So it's, I mean, it's close. It's really, really close. Okay, so this is kind of crazy. This drive shaft was off one of the parts trucks, and I was gonna use it for the 51, but it was 3.5 inches too short. So just for mock-up, I cut it and I threw some exhaust tube in the middle just so we could mock everything up. And then I ended up getting a longer drive shaft that I shortened. And crazy enough is this drive shaft is way too long. Like way, way, way too long. Makes sense because it's a short wheelbase truck. This is out of a long wheelbase, and then it was extended. The crazy part is I just measured, and where I cut it here, if I take that and then I cut this end off and I put it in there, it should be damn near perfect. So I might not have to retube the entire drive shaft. Like I might just be able to cut this end out, move it back here, and weld it in, and we'll have this stubby little drive shaft that'll work. We're gonna try that. I'm not gonna fully weld it. I'll tack it up and make sure it fits, but if that works, man, that's way easier than having to grind two ends out. That's a pain. To grind one, less of a pain. Still a pain, but we're gonna try that out. If that works, that is going to be amazing. The cut wasn't quite perfect, but it was pretty close. I had to take 1 3/4 inches out, so it was good that it was long. So this is gonna work perfectly. It's a real short rear drive shaft, but I mean, it's a tiny little wheelbase truck. So I'm just gonna pull this out. I gotta fully weld that now that I test fit it. And I got new U-joints for both ends. Time to put them in, and we'll have a drive shaft. Rear drive shaft is in. And I mean, it's buttoned up. There's a few things left, like I got a bad relay for the fan. Not a big deal. I just have it jumpered over so it'll run all the time, but I got to do that. And then that's on order. Oh, and then I did the wastegate over here. So sneaky, sneaky little wastegate exit. Kind of, let me get a light here. So it's mounted up there, and then just peeks out the fender, and you can kind of see it sneaking through down in there. So all I got to do now is jump in it, make sure it moves, and then it's ready for a test drive. So let me jump in it, fire it up, and we'll see if it actually moves. All right, let's see if she'll move. First gear. Oh, look at that. Let's try reverse. Hell yeah. Hell yeah, it runs and drives. It actually moves. So yeah, I got a lot of crap to clean up, and then let me shut it off. I got a lot of crap to clean up to get it out of the garage, clean this dirty, dirty windshield, but it's done. It's ready to go drive. So I'm going to get this thing out, and we're going to take it for a test drive, and we're going to see what this thing will do. So